What's going on, guys? This is the Fabia Paz podcast with me, Suddy. This is Shyam, and we're done. Euro 2021 is done. Italy, it's coming. It's coming Rome, as they say. Italy have won the Euros, and in fine fashion. Honestly, I think they overall played a better game. They were more experienced, as we said before. They had the dark arts on their side. They had the experience. Bonucci and Chiellini playing like prime time Van Dijk at 36. It's just it just goes to show experience triumphed in the end. England fought a fair fight, fought a valiant battle over 6-7 games, and they just came up short on penalties. Arguably, some inexperienced players taking penalties, but I think there's no one to blame at a stage of a penalty. It's all about luck. It's a bit of fine keeping and experience. So Sham, talk through the game, man. We didn't think overall. I thought the game when it was a bit more one-sided than what we thought it'd be. Just the gameplay in general. I thought Italy dominated towards the end as well. England looked a bit, perhaps as you say, inexperienced. Didn't know how to see the game out at 1-0. But yeah, talk us through the game.
Yeah, so I mean, the big question we had before the game was, would that back three, Donnarumma, Bonucci, and Chiellini, would they be able to withstand, the English pressure? Funnily enough, that goal that came very early came after, it was from sort of fullback to fullback. It went over everyone. And Donnarumma couldn't really do anything. He could just sort of put his body in the way. It was literally sure volleying it from 6 yards, 2 minutes in. It was one of those moments where, on the full cast, the camera was shaking. Like, the sound was so epic from the crowd that the camera was just couldn't handle it. It was really visibly shaking. England went with that change in the formation, which I think was actually the right move for what they wanted to do. Don't think, though, they expected to score as quickly. They had that rush that for about the first half of the first half, they were in control. They were playing the game on their terms. Italy was sort of pegged back a bit, but I think, and I want to make this very clear. We call this channel the 5-yard pass for a reason. And you want to know that reason, go watch the second half of that first half. The amount of times the Italians, under the press, the hardest thing to do in football, stand with the ball still. When 22 people want the ball and you've got it, the hardest thing to do in football is stand still with the ball, particularly in the middle of the park. All the Italian players, the ability to hold the ball, the mid three, Jorginho, who had about 20,000 passes in the game, all of those three midfielders, hold the ball under pressure, these very small, simple passes to another player. They disrupted England's momentum by holding and keeping possession. And that second half of the first half was quite even, but Italy was sort of coming back into it. And it was 1-0 at halftime, but I just loved the way that they took the pressure out of the game by keeping the ball and hitting very simple. Oh, you'd almost see the passes and you're thinking, oh, that guy's too close. He's going to get the ball nicked from him. But then that guy would play another pass, and then that guy would play another pass. And it was about these chains of very small passes that just disrupted England's momentum and disrupted that press. I actually thought Rice and Phillips were two of England's better players, if not best players, because of that pressing. But even then, Italy was just still too good for them. And that ability to hold the ball is something that England's just missing. So halftime, I think it was 1-0, but it was very even. It's just that England had got that goal. That Italy didn't look particularly attacking in the first half, but I thought that it was a pretty even half overall.
Yeah, look, I think overall, Italy's midfield, we said from the start that Italy's midfield was key. Italy's midfield and maybe Insigne were key to this win and in terms of going forward. It's something in England, I guess, they're very quick to want to release the ball. It's the way the Premier League has played. I'm just looking at all these players besides Sancho, and Sancho will in a month be playing Sancho and Trippier. They all play in the Premier League. They all play at 100 miles an hour, whereas Jorginho grew up, he's only played for 2 seasons, but he grew up on playing keep the ball, play it slow, play it fast. Verratti is very, very good. And the overall, they made England chase shadows for all of the game. It was a classic Italian mind. Like it was very nice to watch. It was very tactical, it was honestly boys against men, unfortunately. And England have a few men in their team in Walker and Kane and Maguire, but it just wasn't to be. And it goes to show the people who did play well for England stepped up for the penalties. And I'm not criticizing the 3 boys who missed it, but it were the men who stepped up and scored and very calm under pressure. Let's just get into it, man. Get into the penalties. What did you think of England's decisions?
I kind of wanted to talk. I'll talk about the second half and then the penalties, if that's all right.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
Because I think Italy got on. They got on top progressively as that half went on, and you could see that goal coming. As scrappy as it wasn't Italy's front two combining to deadly. It It was
Sorry.
Italy's centre backs combining. They even contributed for that goal. Chiellini shot it, Pickford deflected on the post, and Bonucci swooped in. He's a
Mm-hmm.
bit unheralded. He's sort of the other one. Bonucci's kind of like the Vidic to Chiellini's Ferdinand. It's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like Ferdinand was sort of seen as the boss, but he knew he needed Vidic, and Chiellini's
Mm-hmm.
kind of the same. He's the boss. He's kind of he's part thug, part prankster.
Mm-hmm.
He's the
Yeah.
annoying kid at the back of the class who just keeps making jokes. You know, he does that vibe about him. But I like him.
Yeah.
I like him. He played massively. It was those two combining for that goal. Italy, I think, got more and more progressively on top, but that injury to Chiesa, I think, disrupted their rhythm quite a bit. They didn't look as, and particularly that switch. They made a double sub early in the second half and moved
Mm-hmm.
Insigne, who didn't play very well. Insigne, but he
Mm-hmm.
moved him from wide into a false nine, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that just threw something different at England. So England all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden had three centre backs playing against a false nine, and so the England changed its formation as well. Brought on Sarko for Trippier and moved back to that four at the back with Walker shifting wide.
Mm-hmm.
I think Italy progressively got on top, but Chiesa's injury, because he looked the most likely to score, or at least set up, and he was probably their best player until the injury, I think. After that, it came down to Donnarumma and the defenders, but he was looking the most incisive. When he went off, I think the game evened up at that point. It was more in Italy's terms, but there wasn't. You kind of knew it was going to penalties because neither side really had that cut and thrust. I love Chiellini's shirt pull on Saka.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a few
Mm-hmm.
gifs on that one already. But that was,
Mm-hmm.
you said the dark hearts. Like other people would get like a red for that, but he got a yellow. It was
Mm-hmm.
real
Yeah.
thuggish. And
Yeah.
then obviously it went to penalties. Italy had a better idea in terms of what, I mean. Italy just come 3 days ago had the shootout. So, admittedly, the fact that penalties are really a 50-50 lottery. It's not the best way to decide a football match, but it is the way that we have um,
Mm-hmm.
to decide it. And Italy had a better idea of what they were doing because they'd had that shootout 3 days before. They knew who their takers were. It seemed, as much as England brought on Sancho and Rashford to take penalties, and even had Rashford at right back of all places just to get him on the pitch for a penalty, it brings up that dilemma because that happens. I've seen that even back in 2000. I remember Arsenal in the UEFA Cup final brought on Davos Suker with like 5 minutes left for him to take a penalty, and he misses the penalty in a shootout. It's difficult because you've got a player who's fresh versus a player who's not really got the tempo of the game,
Mm-hmm.
and it brings up that juxtaposition of, yeah, he's fresh, so he can kick a ball well, but he hasn't got the rhythm, and he's not got the vibe of the game, and that can create an issue in itself. So it's a gamble in that sense, and it's strange that Southgate, who's quite risk averse, is taking these types of gambles.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something you associate with a man who's quite
Yeah,
against risk.
it was quite interesting because you would think, oh, bringing on these guys for penalties in the last minute is a very risk averse approach, but it is a very risky approach. I was thinking the same thing. These guys haven't played many minutes in the tournament, full stop. Sancho, let alone Rashford. Why are you bringing on the 118th or 19th minute to
Yeah.
take these? You knew when they came on, they won for the penalties, obviously.
Mm.
And when he stepped up, I gotta say, Rashford stepped up. I couldn't, he just didn't look himself the way De Gea didn't against Villarreal. You just knew. Saka not so much. I thought he was going to bang it in, but
To be honest, though,
the
no,
weird.
I didn't. I didn't. When Saka he put the ball down, he took 3 steps back, and I thought, oh, 3 steps he's going to miss. I actually had that
Yeah,
thought in my head.
yeah.
But it was interesting for England that the two players that were on the pitch the whole game scored, and the three players who were subs didn't. And
Mm-hmm.
that's not a great statistical sample, but it does show that, the benefit and the understanding of being in the game. I loved Harry Maguire's penalty. In the telecast,
Did you see it destroy the TV?
yeah, that's what I was
The
going to say.
TV
In the
camera,
telecast,
yeah.
but it was very decisive. He
Mm,
knew what he was going to do. Like, I don't care what the keeper's going to do. I don't care about this. If I hit the ball and it goes there, I'm going to score. There was no
mm,
trying to bluff the keeper, trying to outsmart, trying to play a game. This is my ball. If I do this, it will go in, and it did. That's what I liked
yeah.
about it. Whereas some of it came down to brinksmanship. Some of those penalties that were being taken, and Donnarumma, he's been given player of the tournament, which I suspect is to do with that shootout.
Mm,
Yeah, two really big saves. The Rashford penalty, I think, swung it Italy's way. I think England were always behind from the moment that Rashford missed, because again, that's part of the risk of bringing someone on to take a penalty. If
hmm.
they fail in that one thing, then it just brings the weight of it down a lot.
Yeah.
Pickford did well to save Jorginho. I suspect Chilwell and Mount probably had a word with him. But Jorginho, as much as he's a good penalty taker, can be one of those that tries to outsmart the keeper. A bit like Bruno with the run and the
Very
jump that
much
he
like
does.
Bruno, yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
little bit like that. But when Saka's, I really didn't like Saka having that penalty. I felt that a Grealish could have taken it, or a Stones could have taken it, or a Calvin
Mm,
Phillips, anyone other than Saka.
mm,
Just because that fifth penalty, apart from the first one, it's kind of the most important. You
yeah.
have players now who deliberately take the fifth penalty because it, like Drogba when Chelsea won the Champions League, deliberately took the fifth penalty because it can be the most important one. And Chelsea obviously lost in '08 in the Champions League final when John Terry slipped taking the fifth penalty. So um, I didn't like that he took that fifth penalty. I think it was a bit much for him as it turned out to be. Um,
Yeah.
but I do also think that as the game went on, I think Mancini outmanaged Southgate. I think the subs that Mancini made were to Italy's advantage. And in terms of the change in formation, there was obviously a need with some sort of with fresh legs. He put fresh legs in the right places. He managed the injury to Chiesa, who was his most attacking player, or looked best in attacking positions. I think he managed that quite well. Whereas the Southgate, he should not have taken off Rice. I don't know why he took off Rice for Henderson. I think he should have. I think he should have. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, but he should have taken off Mount, who didn't really do much, and pull Henderson back into that sort of Liverpool 4-3-3, and have
Mm-hmm.
Rice as the pivot with Phillips, who can play for 3 hours. He's got so much
Mm-hmm.
energy in Henderson, and control that midfield a bit better, particularly with the false nine of Insigne. I think that would have worked a bit better. So that sub I didn't like, and I think England lost a lot in the center of midfield when Rice went off. I understand they need to bring Henderson on, but they didn't need to be at that expense. Um, Saka didn't really do a lot when he came on. Not that he played badly, but didn't play particularly well. And all the other subs were just really just late subs to bring fresh legs in and all of that as well. So, but I do think that the switches that Southgate made, the game management, I just think Mancini was better at it. And
Mm-hmm.
that sometimes can happen when you've got a manager like Southgate who has done really well this tournament, but it has not really been a club manager. He's not managed games week in, week out. And traditionally, an international manager has done club football first. And it's for reasons like that that you can make those decisions with in game management. Um, and admittedly, Southgate's had these players at lower levels, but he's not had the week in, week out trying to manage games and manage situations that he hasn't had that Mancini has had, and I think that made a difference in that game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, overall, I think you basically said everything that you've said a lot of what I had to say as well. So you've covered it all, man. But I think England uh, deserved deserved a lot of what they got in the tournament. They played well, but it is what it is. At the end of the day, with a more experienced side, they did exactly what they're supposed to do and
Yeah,
outclassed England. And I think you said the perfect words there. They outmanaged, outcoached, tactically outclassed Gareth Southgate, and that's okay. He's an inexperienced manager compared to Mancini. He's brought first titles to Sampdoria, into Milan, first title to Man City, first Euro to Italy in the modern era. So it was in hindsight again. I mean, I think I saw it myself. I thought, it's no way England even thought they were going to win this game. We put those kind of things at the forefront, the type of experience that Italy have against England's players, but they're primed for the World Cup. They're very primed for the World Cup. They got the average age is. I'm gonna I shoot a number here, but it's about 23, 25 by next year. Prime squad. They'll be fitter, hungrier. Hopefully, none of this affects the players. Players like Sancho, Saka, they're going to have great seasons. You can tell Kane's going to get a move to City, probably Grealish as well. So these guys are primed for Qatar, man. Big time.
and I think that England should be proud of what they've done on the field in this tournament. Um,
Yeah.
it's their second major final ever. It's the first Euro
Yeah.
final that they've beaten Germany in the tournament. They've never done that before. There's a lot of things for English football to be proud of, and they had a goal of making the semis of this tournament and winning in Qatar. So they've outachieved that so far to make the final and take the champions to penalties. I mean that's a very noteworthy achievement.
Mm-hmm.
England has overestimated itself in where it is in world football. That's the furthest they've gone in the Euros. It's apart from that goal in 1966 that did it go not go over the line. This is as far as they've ever gone
Mm-hmm.
in an international tournament. So they should be very proud of that. And like you said, it's not only Qatar. Like that, there is even the tournaments after that. This generation is young enough that it can go to those tournaments. But I think Qatar is definitely at the forefront.
And just to kind of cap off this particular discussion, obviously you had the three players who were racially abused. I mean, I wanted to talk about it, but as we're talking about it now, I don't really want to talk about it anymore. Honestly, it's just sickening, man. It's sad.
Mm.
You don't even know who these people are. They go by. They don't have profile pictures in their accounts. It's just disgusting. But I just I want to bring it up as a point. I don't really want to get much into it because
Mm.
I don't think it's ever going to stop. And
I- I've
yeah.
I've seen the
Well, wait,
petition. I've seen
before you go on about it, Rashford's 22 or 23, Sancho's 21, Saka's 18 or 19, 17,
19.
18.
I heard 19. Yeah,
So
he's a
these are three
teenager still.
boys.
Yeah.
No, right. What Rashford's done more than you and me will ever do in our lifetimes put together, but they're boys. So yeah, go on. You've seen what?
I've seen and signed a petition to have it raised in Parliament or something. I don't. I do think it's important for it to be addressed. I I, I don't really know. It's so hard to see here and say why it happens. I don't know how we can have that discussion. It shouldn't happen. I think at least the social media platforms have a responsibility to do something like get IDs. A lot of these accounts are like bots that are made up,
Mm-hmm.
and then so that they're made up without an identity. I think if you say, like, if I say whatever we say here, we're going to be held accountable for it because our face is here. At
Mm-hmm.
least with social media, there should be a way to have people put an ID and be verified. The
Mm-hmm.
anonymity of social media creates these problems, and I think that it's not going to fix racism, but I think that it at least holds people accountable for what they say. And I think just the nature of it would make a lot of these people um, not do those sort of things.
I'm not gonna lie, man. As soon as the Saka missed the penalty, I knew this would happen because it did cross my mind. I was like, oh, it just so happened three black players missed a penalty. Um, it was sad that I even went there, but I did. But look, as I said before, this team, I know it's going to be. It's ironic because the best performing for England player is also a black player at these Euros. In Sterling, 4 goals and 3 assists or whatever it was. But look, let's leave it there. It's a kind of a shit note to end on, but needs to be said. Do you have any closing thoughts, Sham? I thought it was a fantastic game, fantastic tournament, which we'll cover in the next video. Any closing thoughts on the game?
I did want to mention about some of the violence in the crowd. So I've heard a few
Oh yeah,
stories, even before the game. Obviously, people charging through the gates. Some of the video is pretty graphic. There's like people charging through the gates and people on the other side beating the crap out of them. Um, and then there's incidences. Lando, the F1 driver, got robbed at the game as he was going to his car.
really?
So he came in like a $250,000 car, and there were people waiting in the shadows for him to come back, and they basically took
Jesus,
like a $30,000 watch off his hand.
I didn't hear this. No,
Mike Tyndall. So you know who Mike Tyndall is?
no.
So he played rugby for England. He married Zara
Oh
Tyndall.
yes, 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 yes,
Yeah,
yes,
so
yes. I knew about it. Yeah.
Zara's like Princess Anne's daughter.
Yes, yes,
She's like the
yes.
granddaughter of the Queen. So
Yep.
he stopped the fight that was happening in the stands, a few seats away from him, and he's like raw. He's there with his wife as well. Apparently, his wife had a cloth and was wiping blood off the seats before the game
Mm-hmm.
started. Like these sort
Jesus.
of things. It's incredibly boorish. I don't know where it comes from. Like I get that England have pride in what they've achieved, and they should have pride. But for it to turn into this sort of this hooliganism, or I don't know if bullying's the right word, but like this thuggery and boorishness that even leans into the whole, like they do those sort of things, and then even that sort of "It's Coming Home" song that they have. Southgate was asked about that before the match, and he described it as English humor, the self-deprecating English humor, that they're not singing about their successes but all of their failures. And you and I get English humor, and I get that that's a part of it, but the English fans are seen as a bit boorish because of those sort of the past with football hooliganism, and even these sort of things now, which will probably affect their ability to host a World Cup in the future.
Mm-hmm.
They do want to try and host, I think it's the 2030 World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
There is talk about Great Britain hosting the 2030 World Cup, but if these things happen, that's going to take away from their ability to host.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole "It's Coming Home" thing, people around the world sort of see English people as a little entitled. I think it's a legacy
Mm-hmm.
of the empire and the Commonwealth and what they did in terms of going to other countries and changing culture and that sort of thing. So there's the perception of the English that that sort of upper crust, snotty, sort of upper nose English sense of feeling entitled. So when you sing a song called "It's Coming Home," it sounds like you are due the World Cup, that you're expected to win the World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
And England as a country is probably a little bit more unpopular than it realizes. Um,
Mm-hmm.
like when they finish last in the Eurovision every year, it's because people don't like them. Eurovision is
Yeah,
basically the world's biggest popularity contest. Singing doesn't really
yeah,
have much to do with it, but and they finish last every year. So when those sort of things happen, the fan behavior, the songs that they sing, and I love English football songs. You and I joke about English songs all the time. You know, the song they sing about Patrick Vieira because he passed it to Giggs in the FA Cup semi, and all of
hmm
those sort of songs. I think the Man City fans had a lot of really cool songs about Balotelli as well. Um, all those sort of things. We love that about English football, and a lot of the people that will say things like I'm saying, like me, are big fans of English football. But you just want to see certain things being done better.
Absolutely. I mean, you again said it all, but it would never change, man. Like
Mm.
I do like bringing these points up. I just think like that. I don't know if it's entitlement. I don't know if they just feel it's a rite of passage. All of these boys, and I'm of the view. You see it in Australia as well, man. But you see it in different forms. You don't so much see it in sport. I just feel a lot of these people need to go to like hold a gun, do some national service like I did. You know, a majority of men in most countries are decent human beings, but you get a subsect of men who don't know where to channel their frustrations in life, and maybe they've been down their own luck and whatever, and there's another stat that came out when England loses, domestic abuse goes up 38% in the next 36 hours. And when England
Wow.
win, it goes up 24% in the next 36 hours. So it just goes to show it doesn't matter what England do, men are still going to beat their wives in England,
Oh,
which is horrific,
yeah.
which is
That's,
horrific. And you got and you and if you sub and
that's it.
if you substratify like who is what socioeconomic or what what clubs, what teams, if you kind of break it down and it'd be interesting to see, but also it's not that interesting because it shouldn't be happening in the first place. So it's disgusting. You were sending videos into our chat group about these little skirmishes and stuff, and like it's disgusting, man. On top of the racism that happened with Rasho, Sancho, and Saka, it's honestly unsurprising. And I'll say here, man, I'm absolutely delighted it didn't come home. That song "It's Coming Home" wasn't even for the trophy. It was in '96 that the tournament was going to England. That it's coming home. That's what the song was for.
Oh, because I hosting
So
the Euros in '96.
they
Yeah.
were hosting in '96. So I'm delighted it didn't come home because I don't think I don't think they kind of the fans, the fans who racially abuse, the fans who think that Wembley is their stadium, um, those sort of, Anyway, look, I could go
I,
on forever, but I'm
I
not
didn't
going to.
I didn't realize that stat about for domestic violence. That's a terrible stat.
Yeah, it was a very well. You can call it correlation or causation. I call it
Yeah.
causation because within the 36-hour period immediately after England win or lose, it increases.
It'll be
So
interesting. It'll be interesting to see how many children are born in Italy 9 months from now. I'll tell you that.
yeah.
But
Well, there was a COVID spike. Like
and
there was
they'll
a
all be
huge
called
spike.
Chiellini.
Giorgio Leonardo. uh,
Gianluigi. Yeah.
it's a beautiful name. Like your name is like Bonucci Donnarumma Chiellini. It's a strong name.
It's a masculine name. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing I was gonna say, what was I gonna say? That the song as well. I know England fans do. Like when I played in university, there was a fellow. He was a Cockney fellow from London, and I remember every time we went for training, we do like you'd run a lap around the field like just before training, and he'd start singing "It's Coming Home." And he did
Hmm.
it. He did it purely just because he knew it annoyed the shit out of all of us. Like
Yeah.
so there is that element of just poking and man and banter and fun and all of that. So I
Yeah.
get that, but it does spill over into other things as well. And it can have implications that you're not
Yeah.
necessarily aware of. Yeah.
All right. Perfect. So we ended there, Sean. I think it's a pretty comprehensive view on the game and the kind of lead up. The kind of spillover events as well, which was not the nicest thing, but I think it was bound. Honestly, I think it was bound to happen as soon as the three. Oh, 7 News Australia. Did you see the headline? 3 black players miss penalties. Did you see that?
I sent that to you.
Or
Yeah.
you sent it to me? It was you
Yeah.
sent it to me.
They
So
were
just
trying
just
to
the
they were trying to point out the effect of the racism, but in trying to point that out, they made a comment about how the black players missed the penalty, but the white players scored the penalty, and it was just framed so badly. It was just like,
uh,
you know.
yeah. Okay, cool. We'll end it there though. Thanks so much for watching, guys. This is the 5 Year Puff podcast. We do have a video coming out tomorrow, just kind of reviewing the tournament. But thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. My name is Suddy. This is Shyam. Keep football simple, and as always,
Keep passing, guys. Cheers.
I'm on fire.